Mob Psycho 100 has some of the best animation ever made, but that's not the only thing that made me fall in love with it. Sure, the animation's breathtaking. Every psychic battle feels like an explosion of color, creativity, and pure imagination. Studio Bones took one's unconventional artwork and transformed it into some of the most expressive animation the medium has ever seen. It's the kind of animation that makes you pause, rewind, and watch the same scene over and over and over again, just to appreciate everything happening on the screen. And honestly, I could make an entire video talking about the animation alone. But the beautiful animation only keeps you watching. It doesn't really make you care. What made me fall in love with Mob Psycho 100 wasn't one incredible fight or Mob reaching 100% or even the psychic powers themselves. It was watching a boy with unimaginable power struggle with problems that no amount of strength could ever actually solve. It was watching a con artist become one of the greatest mentors in anime. Reagan is the best mentor in all of anime. I don't care, Kakashi, whoever stands, even Goji stands, get out of here, okay? It was watching a group of bodybuilders become some of the kindest people in the entire series. Those were the moments that stayed with me long after the credits rolled. The more I thought about Mob Psycho, the more I realized something strange. Everything in this series feels oddly connected. The simple character designs, the explosive animation, the comedy, the fights, the villains, even the quiet moments most people would barely even think about. They all feel like they're pointing towards the same idea. And that made me wonder, why does Mob Psycho look the way it does? Why did one choose such simple artwork? Why did Studio Bones preserve that exact same simplicity instead of changing it? Why do the big emotional moments have so little to do with the psychic powers? And why does a story about an overpowered psychic leave you thinking more about kindness, growth, ordinary life than the battles themselves? The more I searched for an answer, the more I realized that none of these questions could be answered alone. They all led back to the exact same place. There's an idea that's woven into every single part of Mob Psycho 100. An idea that's reflected in its art, its characters, its animation, and the way it tells its story. So that's the question I want to answer today. What is it that Mob Psycho does so beautiful? Because I don't think it's just the animation, I don't think it's just the writing, and I don't think it's just the characters either. I think it's something much deeper. So over maybe about next 30 minutes, hour maybe, we're going to pull apart the series, piece by piece, not to explain why it's a masterpiece, but to uncover the one idea that quietly connects everything together. Because if you can answer that one question, I think we'll understand why Mob Psycho isn't just one of the greatest animes ever made. It's one of the most beautiful stories ever told. If beauty is what first catches our eye, then Mob Psycho 100 should have never become one of the most beloved animes within about the last decade. Think about shows that people normally talk about in terms of beauty. It's your Demon Slayers, your Violet Evergardens, your Names. All these animes are celebrated because they are immediately beautiful. Their characters are stunning, their backgrounds are absolutely breathtaking, and every frame looks like it might just belong in an art gallery. Mob Psycho doesn't make that kind of first impression. The first time you see it, it's easy to wonder why it looks the way it does. The characters have simple faces, awkward proportions, and expressions that stretch far beyond realism. Mob himself has a bowl cut, a plain school uniform, and an expression so reserved that he almost disappears into the background. If you judge the series from a single screenshot, you could easily mistake Mob for an unimportant side character, and I think that's exactly what Wad wanted, because from his very first episode, Mob Psycho refuses to rely on surface level beauty. It doesn't ask you to admire its characters because they're attractive. It doesn't ask you to respect them because they're powerful or anything. Instead, it asks for something much harder. It asks for your patience. It asks you to spend time with these people before you decide who they are. That might sound oblivious, but it's surprisingly rare. So many stories introduce their most important characters by making sure you know exactly just how important they are. The hero gets a dramatic entrance. The rival has a memorable design. The villain commands the screen every moment they appear. Every single detail is carefully crafted to demand your attention. Mob doesn't get any of that. He's introduced as a quiet kid walking home from school. No dramatic speech, no incredible display of power, no declaration that he's destined to save the world or anything. He's just another middle school student trying to get through the day. And that choice tells us everything. Because Mob Psycho 100 isn't interested in creating a protagonist you will admire from a distance. It's trying to create someone you'll understand. That philosophy extends far beyond Mob himself. Reagan looks like someone you'd pass on your way to work. The Body Improvement Club looks intimidating until they open their mouths. Dimple begins as a ridiculous floating spirit with a goofy little face. Even the city feels ordinary. There are no towering fantasy castles or futuristic skylines. It's just neighborhoods, schools, convenience stores, and offices. It's a place that feels lived in rather than designed to impress. Nothing screams for your attention. Everything just kind of feels earned. And I think that's one of the series' greatest strengths. Mob Psycho understands the difference between something impressive and something that's meaningful. Impressive things capture your attention immediately. Meaningful things stick with you for a long time. The series consistently chooses the second. That philosophy even exists in the artwork itself. When people first discovered One's original manga, many couldn't get past the drawings themselves. They saw rough line work, simple anatomy, unconventional faces, and assumed it lacked artistic skill. But the longer you spend with the manga, the more you realize those drawings accomplish exactly what they need to. They're expressive, they're emotional, and they're honest. One isn't obsessed with making every panel look perfect. He's obsessed with making every emotion feel real. And those are two very different goals. That's what makes Studio Bones' adaptation so remarkable. Most studios would have taken One's artwork and redesigned everything into something more conventional. Cleaner faces, sharper features, more traditionally attractive characters. Instead, they understood that the simplicity wasn't something to fix. It was something to protect. They preserved the awkward charm of the original artwork while preserving everything around it. The result is an anime that never loses its identity, no matter how spectacular the animation becomes. And I think that's where the beauty of Mob Psycho 100 truly lies. Not in its incredible fights, not in its unforgettable animation, but in its refusal to chase the kind of beauty that's easy to recognize. Instead, it asks us to quietly slow down, to look a little longer, to pay attention to the people behind the faces. Because by the end of the series, the characters haven't changed. Mob still has the exact same bowl cut. Reagan still wears the same cheap suit. The city still looks the same. The only thing that's changed is the way we see them. And maybe that's been the point all along. Animation is often judged by how impressive it looks, how many frames it has, how fluid the movement is, how spectacular the action becomes. And while all those things matter, I don't think they're what makes animation truly memorable. The animation we remember isn't the animation that simply looks beautiful. It's the animation that makes us feel something. And I don't think there's a modern anime that understands this better than Mob Psycho 100. When most people talk about Mob Psycho's animation, they usually point to the biggest fights. Shimazaki versus everyone, Mob versus the boss. They're all incredible spectacles, and rightfully so. Every frame bursts with energy, color, and imagination. Studio Bones consistently pushes beyond what most television anime are capable of. The camera twists through impossible angles, psychic energy floods the screen with vibrant colors, and every impact feels powerful enough to shake the world around it. These are the scenes that dominate highlight reels, social media edits, and conversations about the greatest animated fights in anime. But I think focusing only on those moments misses what actually makes the animation so special, because Mob Psycho isn't beautifully animated only when people are fighting. It's beautifully animated when people are just living. That might sound like a strange thing to say, but that's exactly what makes the series so different. Most anime save their best animation for their biggest moments. The ordinary scenes are simplified, so the production can devote more time and resources to the spectacle. Mob Psycho does the exact opposite. It treats ordinary life with the same level of care as its most explosive battles, because at its heart, Mob Psycho has never been a story about psychic powers. It's a story about people who possess the psychic powers. Take Mob for example. Watching him walk home after school, on paper, it's one of the simplest scenes imaginable. A boy walking through a town, nothing explodes, nobody is fighting, there's no dramatic soundtrack also telling you how to feel, and yet within those seconds, you already understand who he is. His shoulders are slightly slumped, his eyes rarely meet anyone else's, his movements are small, careful, and almost hesitant, as if he's trying not to draw any attention to himself. Before Mob ever tells us he's insecure, before he explains his fears or his struggles, his body has already said everything. That's one of animation's greatest strengths. It allows a character to communicate without speaking. We don't learn who Mob is because the script tells us. We learn because the animation quietly reveals it. The same attention to detail can be seen in Reagan. One of the reasons he's such a captivating character is because his confidence is constantly expressed through movement. He adjusts his tie, gestures dramatically, points with certainty, and carries himself like someone who's always in control. But the moment that confidence begins to crack, the animation changes with him. Think about the scene where he's sitting alone in his office after pushing Mob away. The energetic gestures disappear. His posture sinks. His face lingers in silence. Suddenly, the man who always seemed larger than life feels painfully small. Without relying on dramatic dialogue, the animation lets us feel the weight of his loneliness, his regret, and his fear of losing the one person who truly believed in him. Then there's the Body Improvement Club, a group of characters that could have easily been reduced to a stereotype. In many other stories, they exist to intimidate the awkward protagonist or provide a quick joke before just disappearing from the narrative. Instead, Mob Psycho turns them into some of the kindest people in the entire series. Watch the way they celebrate Mob's smallest victories. Their excitement is genuine. Their movements are full of energy, not because the animators wanted them to look cool, but because they wanted them to feel sincere. Every cheer, every smile, every encouraging gesture reinforces the kind of people they are. That's what separates Mob Psycho from so many beautifully animated shows. Most anime use animation to make movements look bigger. Mob Psycho uses animation to make movements feel deeper. There's a difference. One captures your attention, the other one earns your emotional investment. The animation isn't there to remind you how talented Studio Bones is. It's there to remind you that these characters are alive. Every hesitation, every smile, every nervous glance, and every quiet moment carries meaning because the series understands that human emotion isn't found only in extraordinary movements. It's found in the ordinary ones too. That's why the explosive battles hit as hard as they do. They aren't powerful simply because the animation became more ambitious. They're powerful because we've spent so much time watching these characters live, struggle, and grow in quieter moments. The spectacle only works because the humanity came first. I don't think the greatest achievement of Mob Psycho is a single fight, honestly. I think it's the fact that it convinces us that a simple walk home, a moment of silence, a smile between two friends deserves just as much care as a battle that could level an entire city. In doing so, the series reminds us that beauty isn't reserved for the extraordinary. Sometimes it's found in the smallest movements, the quietest moments, and the emotions we often overlook. And I think that's what makes the animation of Mob Psycho truly unforgettable. Growth is one of those words we use so often that we rarely stop and think what it actually means. We say people grow when they become more successful, more confident, stronger, or finally achieve the goal they've been chasing for years. But real growth is rarely that simple. It isn't always loud, and it certainly isn't always visible. Sometimes growth happens so slowly that we don't even realize it's happening until we look back and notice how much we've changed. Sometimes it means admitting you're wrong. Sometimes it means asking for help after convincing yourself you never needed anyone. Sometimes it's accepting the parts of yourself you spent years trying to hide. That's the kind of growth that changes a person. Not because the world suddenly sees them differently, but because they began to see themselves differently. I think that's what makes Mob Psycho so special. This isn't a story about becoming stronger, it's a story about becoming whole. From the very start, Mob already possesses extraordinary power. There are very few people who can truly challenge him. So if strength was the goal, there wouldn't be much of a story to tell. Instead, the series asks a far more interesting question. Who is Mob without his powers? That question quietly shapes every single decision he makes throughout the entire series. It's why he joins the Body Improvement Club. It's why he refuses to resolve every problem with his psychic abilities. It's why he willingly struggles at things he knows he'll be bad at. On the surface, watching one of the strongest espers in the world struggle through a workout is it's kind of funny. But underneath the comedy is something much deeper. For perhaps the first time in his life, Mob enters a space where his powers mean absolutely nothing. He can't use them to become faster. He can't use them to impress people around him. The only thing that matters is his willingness to keep trying. He falls behind. He gets exhausted. He falls again and again. Yet he keeps coming back because he's no longer chasing strength. He's chasing self-improvement. That's a lesson the series quietly reminds us over and over again. Real growth isn't measured by talent. It isn't measured by success. It's measured by the decision to keep going forward, even when progress feels painfully slow. That same idea echoes throughout the rest of the series, proving that growth isn't something reserved for Mob alone. Reagan spends most of his life hiding behind confidence, humor, and carefully constructed lies. To everyone around him, he always seems to have an answer. But underneath that image is someone terrified of being exposed. His greatest moment isn't defeating a powerful enemy or finally proving himself. It's admitting the truth. For someone who built his entire identity around appearances, honesty becomes the hardest thing he'll ever do. By allowing Mob to see him for who he really is, Reagan experiences a kind of growth that no amount of power could ever give him. By the end of the series, Mob faces his own greatest challenge, not another Esper, but himself. After spending years suppressing his emotions, believing that certain parts of him were dangerous or unacceptable, he's finally forced to confront everything he's been running from. His anger, his fear, his sadness, and his desires aren't separate from who he is. They are who he is. His final victory isn't about overcoming those emotions, it's about accepting them. That's what makes his journey so meaningful. He doesn't become someone new, he becomes someone who no longer has to hide from himself. And I think that's the most beautiful kind of growth there is. Not becoming more powerful, not becoming more successful, not becoming someone everyone admires. Simply becoming a more honest version of yourself. That's the lesson Mob Psycho quietly teaches us. Growth isn't about becoming a different person. It's about having the courage to become the person you've always been. Hello, hi. If you've been enjoying the video so far, I'd really appreciate if you leave a like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people and it lets me keep making more long form videos like this. Mind you, this is my second week still recording this. It's taking quite a long time, okay? They just take a lot of time. I'm sorry. Perspective is a weird thing. Two people can experience the exact same world and walk away with two completely different ideas about it. The events don't change, the people don't change, the world itself doesn't change. The only thing that does change is the lens through which we view it. And yet that single change can completely alter the course of someone's life. That's because perspective doesn't just influence what we see. It influences what we believe and how we treat other people. And perhaps most importantly, how we see ourselves. Every decision we make is shaped by the stories we've chosen to believe about the world around us. Sometimes those stories help us become kinder, more understanding, and more compassionate. Sometimes they quietly build walls around us and everyone else. I think Mob Psycho understands this better than almost any other story. It suggests that the biggest changes we experience in life don't happen because the world changes around us. They happen because the way we see the world changes. No character represents that idea better than Teru. When we first introduced him, Teru believes the world is incredibly simple. There are gifted people and there are ordinary people. There are those born to lead and there are those destined to follow. Strength determines value and power determines status. To him, psychic abilities aren't simply a talent. They're proof that someone is inherently better than everyone else. It's easy to dismiss that belief as arrogance, but I think it's much more complicated than that. Teru didn't wake up one morning and decide he was superior. He spent years being told, directly and indirectly, that his powers made him special. Over time, that phrase slowly transformed into his identity. His ability stopped being something he possessed and became the foundation of who he believed himself to be. Once that happened, everything else followed naturally. If your greatest strength becomes your entire identity, then protecting that identity becomes more important than anything else. Suddenly, every relationship becomes a competition. Every encounter becomes a comparison. Every person becomes someone to measure yourself against. It's an exhausting way to live because your worth depends entirely on remaining above everyone else. The moment someone bigger appears, the foundation of your identity begins to crack. That's exactly why Mob changes Terry in a way no one else ever could. Mob possesses everything Terry believes should make him superior. His psychic abilities are on a completely different level. If anyone has earned the right to look down on others, it's definitely Mob. Yet Mob never does. He doesn't see ordinary people as inferior. He doesn't use his strength to dominate others. He doesn't even seem particularly interested in proving how powerful he is. To Teru, that's almost impossible to understand. How can someone with unlimited power refuse to build their entire identity around it? That's the question that begins unraveling everything Terry thought he knew. It's important to notice that Mob never changes Terry through words alone. He doesn't deliver a speech about humanity or lecture him on morality. He simply exists as proof that another way of living is possible. Sometimes the most convincing argument isn't something you say, it's the way you choose to live. When Terry loses to Mob, he isn't just defeated physically. His entire worldview collapses. The person standing in front of him shouldn't exist according to everything he believes. And once a single belief falls apart, every other belief connected to it begins falling apart too. That's when real growth becomes possible. As the series continues, Terry gradually stops viewing people through the lens of power. He becomes someone who listens instead of judges, someone who protects instead of dominates, someone who values character more than ability. What's remarkable is that none of this happens overnight. Mob Psycho understands that changing your perspective is one of the hardest things a person can ever do, because it often means admitting that the person you've been for years was wrong. That requires humility, it requires vulnerability. Most of all, it requires letting go of an identity you've spent your entire life protecting. That's why Teru's journey resonates far beyond the world of espers and psychic powers. Very few of us will ever struggle with supernatural abilities, but almost all of us build parts of our identity around something, whether it be intelligence, success, popularity, appearances, talent, or even achievements. We convince ourselves that these things define who we are, and before long, we start seeing the world through that lens. We compare ourselves to people who have more. We feel superior to people who have less. Without realizing, we allow comparison to shape our relationships. Mob Psycho quietly challenges that way of thinking. Through Teru, it asks whether our worth can really be measured by the things we happen to be good at. But rather, it suggests that true confidence isn't believing you're better than everyone else. It's no longer needing to be. By the end of the series, Teru hasn't lost his strength. He's still one of the most powerful espers in the story. The difference is that power is no longer the first thing he sees when he looks at himself or the people around him. His perspective has changed, and because of that, everything else has changed too. The world hasn't become different. Teru has, and maybe that's one of the most beautiful ideas in Mob Psycho. Sometimes becoming a better person doesn't begin with changing your circumstances. It begins with changing the way you choose to see them. Sometimes the greatest transformation isn't learning something new. It's finally letting go on a belief that was holding you back all along. Sacrifice is one of those words that's easy to admire until we're the ones asked to make it. We celebrate stories about heroes who risk everything to save the people they care about. They're often remembered as defining moments of the character's journey, the scenes that stay with us long after the story ends. But when we think about sacrifice, we usually imagine something big and dramatic. A final stand, a hero's death, one incredible act that changes everything. In reality, sacrifice is rarely that simple. More often than not, it's quiet. It's choosing someone else's happiness over your own. It's giving up comfort so another person can find peace. It's letting go of something you've spent your entire life chasing, but somewhere along the way, you've realized there's something more important. True sacrifice isn't measured by what we lose. It's measured by what we're willing to give up for someone else. That's why sacrifice reveals so much about a person's character. When everything else is stripped away, our choices reveal who we truly value. I think Mob Psycho understands this far better than any other series. No character represents that idea more beautifully than Dimple. What's remarkable about Dimple isn't simply that he changes, it's where he begins. When we first meet him, he's selfish in almost every sense of the word. His goal is simple. He wants power, he wants followers, he wants recognition. More than anything else, he wants to become a god. Other people aren't companions, they're opportunities. Every interaction is another step towards satisfying his own ambition. If you had watched the first few episodes and tried to predict which character would become one of the most emotional hearts of the series, Dimple would probably be near the bottom of that list, if not at the bottom of the list. He's manipulative, opportunistic, and often played for comedy, yet that's exactly what makes his journey so extraordinary. Mob Psycho doesn't reserve redemption for characters who deserve it. It suggests that people become better because they were given the chance to. Dimple's chance comes through Mob. One of the most fascinating aspects about the relationship is that Mob never tries to force Dimple to change. He doesn't consistently lecture him about morality. He doesn't threaten him into becoming a better person. He simply allows Dimple to stay. He treats him less like an enemy and more like an annoying companion who's somehow become part of everyday life. My bad, by the way. I'm like sick. I was down for like the past 3 days, so I'm it's been fun, I can't lie. And imagine, it was actually my birthday on Monday. But you know, we're not going to talk about that. It's a surprisingly small act of kindness, but that's often how real change begins. Sometimes people don't need someone to fix them. They need someone to believe they're capable of becoming more than they are today. Slowly, almost without anyone noticing, Dimple begins to change. At first it's subtle. He starts giving Mob advice, even if it's hidden beneath sarcasm. He becomes protective when Mob is in danger. He worries when things go wrong. His concern begins to outweigh his ambition. And the audience almost doesn't notice because the transformation happens so naturally. That's one of the things that I love so much about Mob Psycho. It doesn't treat growth like flipping a switch. Dimple doesn't suddenly wake up and is completely a different person. He changes through hundreds of small moments, through conversations, shared experiences, quiet acts of trust. That's how people change in real life, and that's why his journey feels so believable. Through that, The selfish spirit who only cared about becoming a god unknowingly has become someone's friend. Everything builds towards the divine tree arc, where Dimple finally achieves the dream he's been chasing since the beginning of the story. He has unimaginable power, thousands of people who worship him. He's become exactly what he's always wanted to be. By every measure he once cared about, he's won. Yet something feels different. Standing at the peak of everything he worked so hard for, Dimple realizes that achieving his dream doesn't make him happy. For perhaps the first time in his entire existence, power feels empty. That's because the person he was at the beginning of the series is no longer the person standing before the divine tree. Somewhere along the way, Mob changed him, not through force, but through friendship, not through speeches, but through kindness. Suddenly, the thing Dimple values most isn't power anymore, it's the person standing against him. That's why his decision carries so much emotional weight. Dimple isn't sacrificing the plan that never mattered to him. He's sacrificing everything that once defined his entire existence. Every dream, every ambition, every desire to be worshipped is placed to the side for someone else's sake. The character who once wanted millions of followers ultimately chooses one friend instead. I think that's one of the most beautiful reversals in the entire series. Dimple doesn't become a hero because he stops being himself. His personality never completely changes either. He's still sarcastic, he's still mischievous, and honestly, he's still a little bit selfish. But when the moment finally comes, he proves that beneath all those flaws is someone capable of incredible selflessness. That's what makes the sacrifice feel earned. It's the result of every conversation, every shared moment, and every quiet step of growth that came before it. That's why Dimple's story stays with so many people. It reminds us that our past doesn't have to define our future. The mistakes we've made don't permanently determine the people we're capable of becoming. We often believe that change has to be something big or dramatic, that redemption requires some impossible act that erases everything that came before. Mob Psycho argues the opposite. It suggests that redemption begins long before the final sacrifice. It begins with the small decisions we make every day. The decision to care, the decision to listen, the decision to put someone else's needs before our own, even when it's difficult. By the time Dimple makes his final choice, the audience isn't mourning the loss of a former villain. They're saying goodbye to a friend. That's an incredible achievement in storytelling, and it's only possible because the series never rushes its transformation. It trusts us to notice the small moments. It trusts us to see the gradual change taking place beneath the jokes and banter. When the inevitable sacrifice finally arrives, it doesn't feel like a surprise. It feels like the only choice the new Dimple could actually make. In a story filled with psychic powers capable of reshaping entire cities, one of the most powerful moments comes from a single character quietly deciding that someone else's life matters more than their own dream. To me, that's the true beauty of sacrifice. It's not about losing everything. It's about discovering that there are things worth more than everything you thought you wanted. And I don't think Mob Psycho could have chosen a better character to teach us this lesson. There's a common belief that growth is something we accomplish on our own, that becoming a better person is simply a matter of discipline, determination, and willpower. We imagine personal growth as a lonely journey, one where success depends entirely on the decisions we make. And while there's certainly some truth to that, I don't think anyone becomes the best version of themselves in isolation. Every person we meet leaves something behind, a lesson, a memory, a piece of advice even. Sometimes they push us forward, sometimes they hold us back. But whether we realize it or not, the people around us shape who we become. I know I've been saying this like the entire video, but I think Mob Psycho understands this far better than any other story that I've personally experienced. Every meaningful transformation in the series begins with a connection. Not a fight, not a victory, not even a new ability, but rather a relationship. That's why Mob's journey is never presented as something he has to face alone. Even though he's the strongest esper in his entire world, the series consistently reminds us that strength has very little to do with becoming a better person. What changes Mob isn't another battle, it's the people who quietly enter his life and encourage him to become someone he couldn't become on his own. The cleanest example of this is Reigen. And yes, Reigen Arataka is the best mentor in all of anime. I don't care what you guys have to say. He is the best mentor. Whether you like it or not, it's just the truth, okay? He gives Mob something almost no one else does. He treats Mob like a normal kid. He never tells Mob that his psychic powers make him superior to anyone. He never encourages Mob to use his powers to gain status or admiration. In fact, he repeatedly reminds Mob that psychic abilities are simply another characteristic, no different from being naturally athletic, artistic, or academically gifted. They don't determine a person's worth. It's such a simple lesson. At first glance, he's probably the last person who should actually be mentoring anyone. He's a fraud. He exaggerates his abilities. He survives on charm. He's quick thinking and just has a lot of luck. By almost every conventional standard, he isn't someone you'd expect to become an emotional center of the series. But despite all that, it becomes the foundation of Mob's entire worldview. In a genre where extraordinary powers often become a character's identity, Reagan teaches Mob to build his identity outside of them. He encourages him to exercise, make friends, pursue his crush even, and experience life beyond psychic battles. Whether he realizes or not, Reagan is consistently pushing Mob towards becoming a well-rounded person instead of a powerful esper. Ironically, the biggest fraud in the entire series is also one of the most honest people, because Reagan, while he lies about his abilities, he never lies to Mob about what truly matters. Yet what makes their relationship so beautiful is that it isn't one-sided. Mob changes Reagan just as much as Reagan changes Mob. At the beginning of the series, Reagan is comfortable living behind the mask he created. He's charismatic, clever, and endlessly confident. But beneath that confidence is someone deeply lonely and afraid that people will discover who he really is. Meeting Mob forces him to confront his own insecurities. Mob's unwavering trust slowly pushes Reagan to become the mentor he was only pretending to be. He begins taking responsibility over his influence, choosing honesty over convenience, and ultimately admitting his flaws during one of the series' most emotionally powerful moments. Neither of them saves the other. Instead, they quietly help each other become better people. That mutual growth is what makes the relationship so authentic. The same can be said for the Body Improvement Club. In any other story, there would have been the stereotypical group of intimidating athletes who mock the awkward protagonist. Everything about the introduction makes you expect that outcome. Instead, Mob Psycho completely rejects that stereotype. The Body Improvement Club are some of the kindest people in the entire series. They never laugh at Mob because he's physically weak. They never make him feel like he doesn't belong. They don't question why someone so small wants to train with them. They simply welcome him without hesitation. When Mob struggles to keep up, they don't ridicule him. They cheer for him. When he falls behind, they encourage him. And when he wants to quit, they remind him why he started in the first place. To them, effort deserves just as much respect as talent. That mindset quietly transforms Mob. For perhaps the first time in his life, he's surrounded by people who admire hard work instead of natural ability. The Body Improvement Club never care that Mob possesses unimaginable psychic power, because that's never what impressed them. They admire the version of Mob that's exhausted, sweating, and refusing to give up, despite knowing he'll finish last. It's such a small act of kindness, yet it completely changes how Mob views himself. They remind him that growth isn't measured by how gifted you are. Sometimes it's measured simply by showing up. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is come back tomorrow and try again. Then there's Serizawa. Out of everyone in the entire series, he might best represent what happens when someone goes through life without any meaningful human connection. For years, fear controlled every aspect of his existence. Bullied because of his powers and overwhelmed by anxiety, he shut himself away from the world until Claw became the only place willing to accept him. But that acceptance wasn't genuine. Claw didn't help him overcome his fears. They exploited them. Instead of helping him grow, Claw encouraged him to remain dependent. Serizawa became incredibly powerful, yet emotionally, he remained trapped. It isn't until he meets Reagan that his life truly begins to change. And what's remarkable is that Reagan doesn't defeat him with strength. He simply listens. He speaks to Serizawa like a person instead of a weapon. He recognizes the frightened man hiding beneath all that power and gives him something he hasn't experienced in years: understanding. That single moment changes everything. After leaving Claw, he slowly learns how to exist in the ordinary world. He gets a job, interacts with customers, makes mistakes, and experiences the awkward discomfort of starting over as an adult. His progress isn't dramatic, it's slow. Sometimes painfully slow, to be honest, but that's exactly why it feels so real. Serizawa reminds us it's never too late to begin growing if someone is willing to reach out a hand. His story isn't about being rescued, it's about finally meeting someone who believed he deserved a chance. Mob's relationship with Ritsu offers yet another perspective on connection. Unlike Reagan or the Body Improvement Club, Ritsu's relationship with Mob begins with distance rather than closeness. As children, the brothers admired one another, but as they grew older, admiration slowly became envy. Ritsu spent years living in the shadow of his brother's overwhelming psychic abilities. Everyone compared them, even if they didn't mean to. Deep down, Ritsu convinced himself that Mob possessed everything he lacked. That resentment quietly grew until it eventually consumed him. What's heartbreaking is that Mob never wanted Ritsu to feel that way. He never saw himself as superior. He never wanted his powers to create a divide between them. Both brothers misunderstood each other, carrying burdens that other never intended to place there. When the truth finally comes out, their relationship isn't repaired through some grand speech or dramatic declaration. It's repaired through honesty. For the first time, they allowed themselves to be vulnerable with one another. Mob admits his fears, Ritsu admits his jealousy. Neither brother is perfect, but by accepting each other's flaws instead of hiding them, they begin rebuilding the bond they lost. Their relationship reminds us that some of the most meaningful connections aren't ones that never break. They're the ones strong enough to heal after they do. And maybe that's why Mob Psycho feels so genuine. The characters don't change because someone gives them the perfect speech or because one dramatic moment suddenly fixes everything. They change because they're surrounded by people who continue believing in them, even when they struggle to believe in themselves. Growth in the series isn't portrayed as a straight line. It's messy, it's uncomfortable. It involves setbacks, misunderstandings, and moments where people fail each other. But those failures don't invalidate their relationships. If anything, they make them more meaningful because the character chose to stay. And they chose to forgive. They choose to keep believing that the other person can become better. That's a kind of beauty we don't talk about nearly enough. We often celebrate independence as though needing other people is a weakness. Mob Psycho quietly argues the opposite. It suggests that one of the bravest things we can do is allow other people to help us grow. None of us become who we are alone. We're shaped by every hand that reaches out to us, every word of encouragement we receive, every difficult conversation we're forced to have, and every person who chooses to stay when it would be a lot easier to just walk away. I think that's why the relationships in Mob Psycho feel so unforgettable. They're not built on destiny or obligation. They're built on kindness, patience, trust, forgiveness, and the quiet belief that people are never finished becoming who they're meant to be. Maybe that's why the series never treats strength as the answer. The people who change the world in this story aren't always the strongest. They're the ones who are willing to reach out, to believe in someone, and to stay. Because in the end, growth isn't something we achieve despite other people. It's something we achieve because of them. And perhaps that's the most beautiful connection of all. When I first watched Mob Psycho, I was really young and it felt unbelievably slow. But to be fair, at the time I was watching a lot of shonen and a lot of high-paced action anime. So yeah, but then I gave it a try years later, and honestly, I will not lie, it still has some of the best animation in all of anime, from the bursts of color and the impossible camera movements. It's amazing. But after rewatching it again just to make this video has just been honestly amazing, because this series is genuinely so amazing. Like, I don't think I can express how much I actually love this anime. Is it my top anime? No, of course not, but it's definitely in my top 5. I would recommend it for a watch. Give it its time. Be patient. Just watch it for watching it. Don't watch it waiting for any big moments to happen. When those things do happen, they will come, but after a while, you'll stop caring about that. And honestly, that's just the beauty of Mob Psycho. But yeah, thank you very much for watching the video. Like and subscribe for more videos like this. Plus, next week I think I'll be releasing a video about Attack on Titan. Maybe, potentially. I'm not too sure. You'll see whenever it comes out. On Saturday at 3 p.m. Is it EST? I don't know, but South African Standard Time. Yay! And yeah, once again, just like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, see you next week then. Enjoy the rest of your day.